Welcome back to the program. Those who have been watching my show for many, many years know my absolute disgust for all unions. I have never been a fan of unions. I do understand that back maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago, unions were a good thing, generally speaking. But now, no. Now it's all about how much money can we raise for the Democrats and left-wing causes, and let's not give anything to the workers, and we'll keep it all to ourselves, right? This is why I absolutely detest unions. Well, I don't think there's a bigger, disgusting union out there more than the NEA, the National Education Association, which doesn't care anything about children and about children's well-being and their ability to learn, because they were the ones that were pushing the schools to make sure that they were locked down and had these children masked and had these children out of the schools and the classrooms, sitting at home, being depressed and isolated from their friends and classmates. Well, the NEA has now stooped to what I would say is an even new low. In their new curriculum for the upcoming school year, they managed to talk about the Holocaust, get this, without mentioning Jews. You heard that correctly. Listen to this. International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The NEA shall promote the celebration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th annually on its website and through other appropriate media to recognize, you ready for this? The more than 12 million victims of the Holocaust from different faiths, ethnicities, races, political beliefs, genders, and gender identification, including abilities and disabilities. No mention of 6 million Jews being gassed to death in the gas chambers. No mention of millions of other people, including blacks, whites, Indians, gypsies, you name it, all these different types of people, another additional 7 million more being murdered. No. They have to be PC. They have to be DEI. And they have to say stupid things like more than 12 million victims of the Holocaust without separating it like most people do and say including 6 million Jews. No, the NEA doesn't feel as though we should even teach that anymore. Absolutely sickening. All I can say is thank God President Trump shut down the Department of Education. I wish there was a way to shut down every single one of these unions in this country. Every single one. And it doesn't matter where they are. Whether it's automotive, whether it's educational, whether it's vocational, whether it's, for veterans. I don't care where it is. I absolutely hate all unions because they're not about the people they serve. They serve themselves instead. So let me start with that today. Now, let's talk about this. Oh, get the COVID jab. Get the COVID jab. Get that COVID jab. Because, of course, it'll save your life, right? Landmark study by Stanford finds that the COVID jabs, quote, saved fewer lives than were not only thought, but also reported, okay? It was a big, giant pandemic for a whole bunch of that. A majority study by Stanford University and Italian researchers has found that the COVID-19 vaccine saved far fewer lives than originally thought. The World Health Organization previously asserted that the jabs prevented as many as 14.4 million deaths in their first year, with some estimates going as high as 20 million. Wow, let's talk about that for a second. Not only did they not save lives, they actually killed probably in the neighborhood of 7 to 9 million people worldwide, which is why I have called Dr. Anthony Fauci one of the world's worst mass murderers. I even say that in Preserving Liberty. So, according to this latest study, the actual number of lives saved globally throughout the entire pandemic is likely closer to only 2.5 million. The data suggests that the vast majority of those spared were the elderly, with roughly 90% of prevented deaths occurring among individuals over 60. Among younger groups, the numbers were strikingly low, just 299 lives saved worldwide among people under the age of 20 and 1,808 in the age range between 20 to 30 years old. The study also quantified the number of vaccinations needed to save a single life. Across all ages, an average of 5,400 doses were required per life saved. Wow! Let me repeat that. Over all ages, on average, 5,400 doses were required per life saved. For those under 30, that figure soared to 100,000 jabs. Wow. Unbelievable. 5,400 doses required per life saved. So how many did they kill as opposed to saving? I'm dumbfounded at this point. Researchers also questioned the rationale behind blanket vaccine mandates, particularly for low-risk populations, and criticized the excessive drive to vaccinate all individuals regardless of age or vulnerability, but we all know the reason why they wanted to pump this poison into all of our veins. Unreal. They added that such findings should inform more targeted and evidence-based strategies in the future if there was ever a public health emergency. This study's author, professor of medicine at Stanford University, John Ioannidis, said that, quote, early estimates were based on many parameters having values that are incompatible with our current understanding. Quote, in principle, targeting the populations who would get the vast majority of the benefit and letting alone those with questionable risk-benefit factors and cost-benefit factors makes a lot more sense. Aggressive mandates and the zealotry to vaccinate everyone at all costs were probably a bad idea. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a bad idea. Perfectly healthy people in their, teens or even younger, in their 20s, in their 30s, they're working out, they're doing their thing, and you're forcing them to get this jab, to keep their jobs with the military, to keep their jobs with the police department, the fire department, the nursing, whatever it might have been. And yet, they are now, many of them, dead because of that. This coercion campaign for the almighty dollar needs to be blown apart, number one. And number two, we need to get rid of the pharmaceutical companies' protections. We have got to get rid of it. Congressman Paul Gosar, who did the foreword to my book, Preserving Liberty, just came out with legislation and said, we need to get rid of the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies and all that. They should not have carte blanche protection against criminal and civil liabilities anymore. President Trump, he ought to do an executive order banning that right away. Unreal. So, let's move on. The apple apparently does not fall that far from the tree, folks. Son of would-be Trump assassin Ryan Ruth sentenced to 7 years in jail for child pornography. Orrin Ruth, son of would-be assassin Ryan Ruth, who was arrested last year for child pornography, has been sentenced to 7 years in prison. On Friday morning, Orrin Ruth appeared in federal court for sentencing for a count of possession of child pornography of a child under the age of 12. He pleaded guilty to this charge in exchange for his other charges, which included multiple counts of possessing and transporting child pornography, being dismissed. The judge sentenced him to 7 years in prison with 5 years of supervised probation. Orrin Roth was taken into custody after investigators found hundreds of child pornography files on his Galaxy Note during a search of his North Carolina residence last year. What a sicko. But hey, he's a sicko. His father is a murderer or attempted murderer. So that's interesting. They'll be in jail together. Wonderful. All right. Now, the other thing was, what was I going to cover? Was it one more thing, I think? Yeah, let me see here. Okay, this was really interesting and, quite frankly, great news. 13,061 unaccompanied immigrant minors have been located by Health and Human Services and ICE, and they have arrested, you ready for this? 422 sponsors of these children, and they're now under criminal investigation for child endangerment and abuse. The Trump administration has located more than 13,000 unaccompanied migrant minors who went missing under the laxed border policies of the Otto Penn administration, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. Then it goes on to say here, this report, which exposes the failures of the previous Otto Penn administration, reveals that hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied immigrant minors entered the United States and were transferred from ICE to the Health and Human Services Refugee Resettlement Office. However, there are still 233,000 of these children that are still not found and located. Now remember, when Trump took over and Homan took over, there was, I think, close to 400,000 of these children missing. So they have found close to half already. And God bless them for working their tail off to do that. Let's see. And then it talks about 43,000 of these had court orders, did not attend their hearings. These were people that were sponsoring these children. So now we've got to also find not just these children and save their lives, but now we've got to find the perpetrators who sponsored these children illegally. I'd also go after the NGOs that sponsored the sponsors. Okay, we need to shut this all down, and all these people need to be prosecuted and go to jail. So this is wonderful that they are finding some of these children. Thank goodness they are. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is this. So it looks like at this point, Ghislaine Maxwell met once again for many, many hours with the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And at this point, her attorneys are pushing for President Trump at some point to give her a pardon. Now, apparently, from what I have heard, she has given out an additional 100 names to Todd Blanche in the last 2 days or so. Now, does that mean that she's going to divulge all those names to Congress? Gosh, I hope so, but we don't know for sure. So, she's looking for a way out of jail. She's 63 years old. If she serves 20 years, she's 83 years old or whatever. She might even be older than that because she served 4 or 5 years. So she went in at like 59 or whatever it was, 58. And so she's 62 or 63 now. I think she's 63. So yeah, she's talking about, even if you do that another 15 years, she's going to be, what, 78, 79 years old? That's pretty old. That's a lot of time to spend in jail. Now, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. She absolutely deserves it. I hope she rots in jail for the rest of her life. However, if we do want to get the list, and if we do want to try to prosecute the people on that list, and we sacrifice one person to do it, well then, hey, I think it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.